The ashes of survival and the weight of redemption warning. If the quiet power of motherhood and the crushing weight of redemption move you, then you need to smash that subscribe button right now. Hit like and comment to share your thoughts on this brutal true story that proves genuine love requires constant, unflinching presence. The decision, a void of logic. Alexander Alex Hayes had always believed that life was a structure built on order, logic, and absolute control. He knew how to negotiate billion-dollar contracts, predict market shifts, and bend entire industries to his will. He understood power and exactly how to maintain it. Yet, when Charlotte, Charlie Vance, told him she was pregnant, something inside him shattered. Not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much, and he had no idea how to manage the vulnerability that came with it. His fear took the form of arrogance, and pride morphed into an impenetrable shield. In one moment of paralyzing panic, he typed the words that would define the next 4 years of their lives. I wanted a woman, not a mother. He convinced himself it was the right decision, that she would be better off without him, that he had spared them both a future filled with stress, resentment, and limitation. He plunged back into his work, building his firm into something even larger, more powerful, and more demanding than before. He filled his life with meetings, events, superficial relationships, and noise. If the memory of Charlie crept into his mind at night, he dismissed it. If he wondered what became of the child, he buried it. If he felt a dull ache in his chest recalling her laugh or the way she used to touch his hand while talking, he forced himself to forget. Charlie, meanwhile, felt the world drop out from under her feet. She had loved Alex with a tenderness that terrified her, and when he left, she had to learn to breathe all over again. The pregnancy was far harder than she expected. There were complications, physical strain, and the overwhelming reality that she was utterly alone. When the doctors told her she was having triplets, she laughed through tears, unable to distinguish if the emotion was joy or sheer terror. She worked as long as her body allowed, saved every penny, relied on distant acquaintances for small favors, and forced herself to stand tall, even when exhaustion blurred her vision. When the girls were born, their tiny cries filled the hospital room like a storm breaking after days of heavy sky. They had the same dark, wavy hair and eyes of a striking blue, so bright and so familiar that her breath hitched. They looked exactly like him. For a moment, she half expected him to appear in the doorway, to say he was sorry, to try, to say anything. But the doorway remained empty, and she embraced her daughters with a heart that was both broken and fiercely, stubbornly alive. The first year was pure survival. She slept in short fragments between feedings. She learned to hold all three at once, to rock them with a rhythm that became instinct, to silence her own tears so as not to wake them. There were days she felt herself disappearing into motherhood, dissolving into milk, blankets, and lullabies. But there were also moments of breathtaking tenderness. The way each of them gripped her finger with tiny fists, the quiet weight of them sleeping on her chest, the sudden burst of laughter that filled their small apartment like sunlight. She discovered a strength in herself she never knew existed, a strength that didn't roar, but simply endured. 4 years passed. Charlie had built a life in a small, quiet town on the coast of Maine, Seabrook Cove, far from skyscrapers and polished offices. She worked part-time at a small local cafe, the owner allowing her to bring the girls when she couldn't find childcare. The town knew her name. They smiled at her. They helped her without asking when she struggled with 3 pairs of mittens, shoes, and bows. She was still tired, but the exhaustion no longer felt like drowning. It felt like living. The girls, Eleanor, Sophia, Anqua, and Claire, grew into bright, curious little girls who laughed loudly and ran everywhere. They adored the ocean, the sand, the seagulls, and the world felt full of new beginnings. Alex knew none of this. He continued his high-flying life, though something in him began to dim. The relationships he sought felt empty. The achievements failed to satisfy him as they once had. He couldn't explain the sense that something was missing, a faint echo of something vital he had thrown away. He never spoke Charlie's name, but sometimes, walking home late, he thought of a sweetness he once had and lost, and the pain returned sharper than before. He still did not know that his carefully constructed life was one moment away from shattering. He did not know that destiny was waiting for him on a park path, in the sound of little girls' laughter, in the familiar blue of 3 tiny pairs of eyes. He did not know that everything he had run from was about to find him again. 2-2. The encounter. A 4-year debt. The day Alex saw them began like any other, ordinary in a way that gave no warning of how everything in his life was about to tilt. He had traveled to Seabrook Cove for a business acquisition, expecting to spend a single efficient day reviewing documents, signing contracts, and returning to the city before nightfall. His assistant had booked him a quiet hotel near the shore, and when the meetings finished ahead of schedule, he found himself with an unfamiliar stretch of free time. The sky was clear, the air soft with the sweet, salty scent of the dunes, and for the first time in months, he walked aimlessly. He followed a winding path that led to a park overlooking the beach, thinking only of clearing his head before returning to his world of polished boardrooms and silent elevators. He was not thinking of Charlie, not consciously, though she lived in the quiet places of his memory, like a song he couldn't quite forget. So when he heard laughter, sharp and bright like something breaking in the air, he didn't expect the sound to paralyze his body. 3 small girls were running across the grass, chasing each other in uneven circles. Their curls bounced with every step, wild and soft, the color of deep chestnut kissed by sunlight. When one turned toward him, her eyes gleamed a shade of blue he knew far too well. He felt the moment as a physical blow. His breath hitched, his heart stuttered in his chest as recognition slammed into him. He watched them for several seconds, unable to move, to think, to breathe. Then he saw her. Charlie was sitting on a blanket nearby, her hair catching the sun, gold strands shining like something celestial. She was smiling, a quiet, soft smile that came from somewhere deep inside her. A smile that belonged to someone who had survived something painful and still found beauty. The sight of her hit him harder than he was prepared for. She looked different, not the fragile girl he remembered, but a woman who had been remade by life. She looked tired, yes, but strong, grounded, and whole in a way he had never allowed her to be when she was with him. He couldn't look away. One of the girls stumbled, and Charlie rose, moving toward her with calm, sure strides. She knelt, checked the girl's knee, kissed it softly, and the little girl's tears turned into small hiccups of laughter. It was such a simple moment, but to Alex, it was devastating. It was love in its purest form. The love he had rejected. The love he had believed he didn't need. The love that had kept living, growing, thriving without him. He felt the weight of his past words crash down on him like heavy, merciless cold water. I wanted a woman, not a mother. He remembered the message exactly. The sting of his silence after, the way she had stopped replying. He had believed he was saving himself. Now he understood. He had simply cut off everything that might have made him human. He took a step forward before realizing he was moving. The girls noticed him first. They stared at him with curious, open expressions, the way children look at something new and unknown. but not frightening. Then Charlie looked up. For 1 second, time stopped. Her eyes widened only slightly, enough for him to see shock bloom behind them. The sudden storm of old pain, disbelief, memory, and something sharper. She didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She didn't utter his name. She simply straightened, pulling her daughters closer with a subtle but instinctual motion, protective in a way that told him everything he needed to know about the years he missed. Alex felt something contract in his chest. The words he had once prepared, the apologies he had imagined but never spoken, vanished from his mind. All he could do was stand there, staring at the life he had thrown away and the family he never imagined would exist. Charlie did not look away, but her gaze was distant, firm, unwavering. She was not the girl he left. She was a mother now, and her strength radiated from her like silent fire. He finally spoke her name, and his voice sounded unfamiliar, rough, unsteady. She did not answer. She just held the nearest girl's hand and waited. The silence between them felt like the ocean itself, vast, deep, and filled with everything left unsaid. The moment was not a reunion. It was a reckoning. And Alex understood, perhaps for the first time in his life, that love was never something he could control, discard, or avoid. It was right in front of him. 3 tiny reflections of his own eyes watching him with innocent curiosity, and Charlie, who had learned how to live without him. The world he had built for himself began to crack, and he knew without a doubt that nothing would ever be the same. Audience interaction. If you were Charlie, what would your first reaction have been upon seeing Alex? Fury, silent stone, or fleeing? Comment your reaction below. Chapter 3. The Test of Time. To be, not to talk. The shock of seeing Charlie and the girls did not fade when Alex returned to his hotel. If anything, it settled deeper, growing heavier, like a weight he couldn't put down. He lay awake most of the night, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene over and over. The girls' laughter echoed in his memory, and Charlie's steady, cautious eyes held him like a mirror he could no longer avoid. He had imagined what it would feel like to see Charlie again, but nothing prepared him for the reality of the 3 little girls who clearly carried his features, his expressions, even the same dimple near the corner of their mouths. They were undeniable. They were his. The next morning, Alex made a decision that surprised even himself. Instead of leaving town, he found himself walking the same path back to the park. He wasn't sure if Charlie would be there again, but the pull was stronger than reason. He approached cautiously, as if entering a sacred space. Charlie did not greet him. Her silence was not anger, but a boundary, and he understood it now. He sat down a respectful distance away, leaving space between them. After several minutes, the boldest of the girls stood up and walked toward him. She had sand clinging to her palms and knees, and her curls framed her face like a halo touched by the sea breeze. She looked at him without fear. "Are you lost?" she asked, her voice clear and bright like a child who hasn't yet learned caution. The question hit him in a way he didn't expect. He felt something tighten in his chest before he answered softly. "Yes, I think I was." Charlie's eyes flickered, barely. Alex swallowed, finally speaking to Charlie, his voice low and steady. "I didn't know," he said. "I thought I could leave and move on. I thought leaving would protect everything I'd built. I was wrong." Charlie didn't look at him right away. She traced a line in the sand with her finger, her expression unreadable. When she spoke, her voice was soft, yet firm, like someone who had learned their strength the hard way. "You didn't just leave," she said. "You erased us. You erased me." There was no accusation in her tone. It was simply the truth. And hearing it out loud was more painful than any deed could have been. "I know," Alex said. His voice wavered slightly, surprising him. I know there's nothing I can say to undo that. Charlie exhaled slowly, her eyes drifting toward the ocean. I didn't need your money, she continued. I needed someone who wouldn't run away when life wasn't neat. I became a mother overnight, and I did it alone. She paused, and her gaze returned to him. Steadier now. I'm not letting you back in just because you regret leaving me. He understood. For the first time, he truly understood. Regret alone wasn't enough. Wanting to be in their lives wasn't enough. He would have to prove something he had never needed to prove before, his capacity to stay, to show up, to be more than apologies and good intentions. Let me try, he said quietly. Not for me, for them, and for the person you became while I wasn't looking. Charlie didn't reply. She simply rose, gathered the girls, and began to leave the park. She stopped for a moment beside him, not close enough to touch, but close enough for him to feel the warmth of her presence, like a memory reignited. If you really mean it, she said without cruelty, you'll still be here tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Then she left. And for the first time in years, Alex did not leave. He watched her walk away, his heart heavy and full, and he knew he would return. Because he finally understood what love required, showing up not once, but every single day. 4. Building a home. Consistency and trust. Alex returned to the park the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. At first, the routine felt fragile, like a thin thread that might snap if he pulled too hard. But with each passing day, it grew firm and steadying. Charlie remained cautious, and her caution was not cold. It was careful, patient, shaped by years of heartache stitched back together piece by piece. She didn't try to test him, nor did she try to make the path easy. She simply allowed time to reveal if his efforts were genuine or temporary. The silence between them began to shift. It was no longer sharp and painful, but thoughtful, filled with shared glances and quiet understanding. Occasionally, Charlie would respond when he asked small questions about the girls. He learned their names slowly, making sure to say them softly, like something precious that didn't yet belong to him. One morning, the boldest of the triplets, Eleanor, ran up to him holding a small, misshapen sandcastle in her hands. She held it up with pride. Look, she said, I made this. Alex took the fragile sculpture with careful fingers, terrified of crushing it. It's perfect, he said quietly. She smiled, and for a moment her smile looked exactly like his. As weeks passed, Alex stayed in the town longer than he intended. His assistant was confused, his board was frustrated, but he didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt he was doing something real, something that mattered. He helped where he could, small things at first, carrying groceries, fixing the latch on Charlie's front door when it stuck, bringing coffee to the cafe where she worked when her sleep was too short. He didn't announce his actions. He didn't ask for recognition. He simply showed up, quiet and consistent, the way he should have years ago. One afternoon, Sophia fell while climbing a rock near the tide line. The fall was not serious, but the shock sent her into sobs. Before Charlie could reach her, Alex was already moving. He knelt by the girl, lifting her carefully, hugging her, whispering reassuring words he didn't know he remembered how to say. The little girl's sobs softened into hiccups, her face pressed against his shoulder. When Charlie reached them, she stopped, her hand suspended in the air. Alex looked up, and their eyes met. There was no triumph in his gaze, no claim, just tenderness and a quiet sorrow that spoke of all the moments he had missed. Charlie let the moment continue. Later that evening, Charlie invited him to walk home with them. It was the first time she had done so. The girls skipped ahead, holding hands and singing, while Charlie and Alex walked behind them, their strides falling into the same rhythm. The silence between them felt different now, not heavy, but thoughtful, like something letting go of its grip. "You're different now," Charlie said finally, her voice quiet, unaccusing. Simply observing. Alex exhaled slowly, his voice low. "I lost something I didn't know how to keep. I thought love was something that made you weak. I thought building a big enough life would protect me from needing anyone. I was wrong. I can't undo what I did. I can only be better now." Charlie didn't answer right away. She watched the girls. Then she looked at him. There was no forgiveness yet, but there was no hatred either. Only memory, truth, and something beginning to soften. "I don't know where this goes," she said. "I don't know what you can be to them, or to me." He nodded. "Whatever you allow me to be, I'll earn it." Slowly. She considered his answer, then nodded slightly. The kind of nod that changes the direction of a whole life. The girls ran back to them, laughing, and Charlie opened the door, calling them in. She didn't invite him inside. Not yet. But before she entered, she turned back to him. For the first time in 4 years, she smiled at him. Not the girl she once was, but the woman she had become. It was small. It was enough. V. The final plea. "I will be here." Something began to change over the next few weeks. Not suddenly, but slowly, like the way a tide turns. The town grew used to seeing Alex with Charlie and the girls. The girls no longer looked at him as a stranger. They laughed with him, tugged at his sleeve when they wanted attention, and climbed onto his lap when they were tired. Charlie watched all of this with careful eyes, but she did not pull them away. One evening, the wind was warm, and the sky was painted with streaks of orange and rose. Charlie was closing the cafe where she now worked full-time. Alex was there, not because she asked him to be, but because he simply showed up, the same way he had every single day. "You upended your entire life," Charlie said after a while, her voice quiet but steady. Alex kept his eyes on the horizon as he answered. "It didn't happen suddenly. I just woke up one day and realized the things I had built no longer felt like my life. I had everything I thought I wanted, but none of it meant anything. There was no warmth, no meaning. There was no home." Charlie considered his words. "Home isn't something you just find," she said. "You build it, and you rebuild it, especially when it breaks." Just as they reached her house, one of the girls came running, tripping. She fell hard and began to cry, the kind of high-pitched wail children make when fear hurts more than the sting. Charlie stepped forward, but Alex got to the girl first. He didn't panic or freeze. He knelt, held her gently, and held her, murmuring soft, steady words he didn't know he remembered how to say. The little girl's sobs softened into hiccups, her face pressed against his shoulder. Charlie watched, and something inside her broke. Not painfully, but like something long frozen starting to melt. He wasn't playing the part of a father. He simply was one. When the girl finally calmed, Alex carried her toward the house. Charlie opened the door, and this time she didn't ask him to stop at the threshold. She stepped aside. He walked in. "Stay for dinner," she said. He froze, not out of confusion, but from a sudden surge of emotion he barely managed to contain. He nodded. "If you want me to." Charlie didn't smile, but her eyes softened in a way that made breathing feel easier. "I wouldn't have asked if I didn't," she replied simply. That night, for the first time in a long time, Alex didn't feel like a visitor in his own life. He felt present. He felt needed. And most of all, he felt home. 6. The New Foundation. You are not alone. One afternoon, the rain fell surprisingly soft. Charlie was locking up the cafe. Alex had been waiting with the girls. Without speaking, Alex took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It was an instinctive gesture. Charlie froze at the familiar weight and warmth, but she didn't remove it. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had stayed?" Charlie asked, her tone honest. "Every day," he replied. "But I can't change who I was then. I was afraid of losing control. I was afraid of needing anyone. I thought power meant never relying on anyone. But everything I built to keep life under control ended up being empty." "I loved you then," Charlie said at last. "I loved you so much it felt bigger than I knew how to carry. When you left, I had to learn how to live without something I couldn't replace." Alex stopped. He turned around. His expression was open, unreserved, raw in a way she had never seen. "You don't owe me forgiveness," he said, "and I don't expect the past to disappear. I just want the chance to be here now, to be someone you don't have to carry alone, to be someone they can count on. And if that's all I'm allowed to be, I'll take it. I'll stay anyway." The rain continued to fall, and Charlie felt something loosen in her chest. Not surrender, just possibility. A month later, summer had arrived. Life had settled. One afternoon, Charlie received a letter from the hospital. One of the girls was showing signs of a congenital heart condition. It wasn't life-threatening, but it would require vigilance. The memory of being alone in a hospital flooded back. That night, when Alex arrived, she was sitting down, the unopened envelope beside her. He sat next to her, waiting. Charlie explained her fears, the memories she had never allowed herself to say out loud. "I should have been there," Alex whispered, and his voice cracked. "I can't fix the past, but I am here now. Whatever comes, doctor's visits, surgeries, nights when you are scared and tired, I will be here. You don't have to do any of it alone, ever again." Charlie closed her eyes. When her hand closed over his, she left it there. One evening, she stood on the porch looking out at the ocean. Alex stood beside her. "I was afraid to let you get close," she said. "I thought if I did, I would lose everything I rebuilt. But I see now," she said, her voice soft but sure, "that maybe what I rebuilt was never meant to remain closed off. It was meant to grow." This time, she took his hand. It was the first choice she made toward him since the day he left. Not a return to the past, but the beginning of something new. The end of summer came. The girls called him Daddy in small, accidental moments at first. One afternoon, they returned to the same park where they had first seen each other. Charlie wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. Alex broke the silence first, explaining how his arrogance had been built on fear, how the version of love he once wanted was shallow because he himself had been shallow. "I want to not replace the life you built, but be a part of it," he said. She looked at him. "I don't promise a perfect life. I promise one you have to work for, one you show up for, every single day." Alex nodded, his eyes soft and steady. "I want that. I want all of it." She took his hand, not with hesitation, but with the quiet certainty of someone who chooses love, not because she needs it, but because she wants it. The girls looked over the park, saw their parents' hands linked, and ran toward them laughing, their eyes bright with the belief that the world was safe. And for the first time, it was. Not because the past had been erased, but because they had survived it and built something stronger in its place. 7. The silent celebration and the final test. Autumn arrived with an unexpected softness to the coast of Maine, painting the horizon in ochre tones and the sea in melancholy grays. Charlie and Alex's lives were no longer two parallel lines intersecting daily. They were two rivers that had begun to converge. They did so with respect and an awareness of the effort involved. Charlie's house, once a sanctuary against the world, became a true home, enriched by Alex's constant presence. He hadn't officially moved in, but his belongings naturally blended in, a stack of business books on the nightstand, a leather jacket on the coat rack next to Charlie's work apron, and a professional toolkit in the small garage that previously only housed beach toys. The girls, Eleanor, Sophia, Thomas, and Claire, had already made the irreversible switch. Daddy had become a name, an expectation, a certainty that he never failed to deliver. One Saturday afternoon, Charlie and Alex were in the yard. Charlie was pruning the rose bushes, her brow beaded with sweat, and Alex, his t-shirt stained with dirt, was finishing the assembly of a double swing set that he had spent weeks designing to be safe for all three girls at once. "That's a very serious swing set for a man who runs a corporate empire," Charlie said, not looking up, her voice laden with quiet intimacy. Alex chuckled, a low, unforced sound. "Quality control is crucial, and this is the most important project I've overseen in years." He stood up, wiping the sweat from his hand. Charlie's gaze met his. In that moment, there was no lingering resentment, only deep curiosity. "Your city life?" she asked. "You're bored? Have they realized the CEO is missing in action for a swing set?" Alex walked closer, stopping just the right distance away, respecting the invisible boundary that still existed. "My assistant thinks I'm on a top-secret strategy retreat, and the board is used to me closing major deals from anywhere. And you? Don't you miss it?" He looked at her with brutal honesty, the same honesty he had learned to deliver since he had lost her. "I miss the challenge, the noise, but I miss the truth of this much more. The feeling that I'm building something that cannot be bought or sold." Charlie nodded, her heart feeling warm. Honesty was the only currency she accepted now. The moment of testing arrived unexpectedly, like a cold breeze on a sunny day. One morning, while Alex was at the cafe with Charlie and the girls, ordering without asking, Charlie's coffee and 3 orange juices, a high-end black car pulled up sharply in front of the local. A man in an expensive suit, Marcus, Alex's chief operating officer and oldest partner, stepped out, his face tense and worried. Marcus didn't see Charlie. He saw only Alex sitting at a plastic table, laughing while a little girl braided a piece of his hair. "Alex, for God's sake!" Marcus hissed, approaching the table, not bothering to acknowledge Charlie or the girls. "We've been panicking for a month. The Gulf Investments deal is falling apart without your presence. You're here playing daddy in a fishing town. What the hell is going on?" Alex's face went rigid. It was a brutal clash of his two worlds. He stood up, his expression the ruthless CEO Charlie remembered, but he stepped between Marcus and his family. "Lower your voice, Marcus," Alex said, his voice low and dangerous. "You are trespassing on my private life." "Private life?" Marcus laughed, a harsh, grating sound that startled the girls. "This is your private life? This humble setup and these burdens?" Charlie, her face white, slowly rose. Eleanor, the oldest, clutched her mother's dress. "I've tried contacting you for the sake of your company, Alex. You cannot just disappear from an empire. For this woman? For these children?" Marcus looked at Charlie with barely disguised contempt. "I thought you were smarter." Charlie didn't wait for Alex to respond. She took a step forward, her stature modest, but her stance unbreakable. The strength that had kept her going for 4 years resonated in her voice. "Sir, these burdens have names, and this woman has already rebuilt her life without having to rely on anyone's empire." Marcus ignored her, turning back to Alex. "Are you going to let her ruin everything again? For a sentimental outburst? Get back to the city before the board deems you incapable." It was the ultimate low blow, an appeal to Alex's old vanity. Charlie looked at Alex, not with fear, but with the sadness of knowing this moment had come. She was ready to leave, to give him the space to choose his empire, but Alex didn't move. He looked at Marcus, then he looked at his daughters, and then he returned to Marcus. In Alex's eyes, Charlie did not see the man who had abandoned her, but the man who had spent months fighting his way back. Get back in the car, Marcus, Alex said, his voice ringing with cold, firm authority that superseded any boardroom roar. Call the board right now. Tell them I have an emergency meeting in town and that I will send a statement tonight. But Alex, the deal will close, but you won't be handling it. And hear me well, never again speak to my family like that. Or you won't just be my COO, you'll be my ex-COO, and I guarantee the fall won't be soft. Understood? Marcus, for the first time, saw the truly angry Alex Hayes, the one who could demolish careers with a single look. He backed away, his face pale. Understood, Alex. Good, now leave. Alex waited for the car to pull away before turning. Charlie was standing, her hands trembling, her eyes filled with unshed tears. Why didn't you just tell him to go away? Charlie asked softly, her throat tight. Alex walked up to her. He said nothing about the empire, nothing about the money. He simply took her hand, the same hand he had let go of 4 years ago, and interlaced their fingers. Because the man who would let Marcus get away with that no longer exists, he said, looking at his 3 daughters. And I won't let anyone, not even a ghost from my past, mock the home we have worked so hard to rebuild. I choose you, now and always. In that moment, Charlie knew that the test of time and patience was over. Alex's true redemption was not just his regret. It was his unconditional choice of his family over his fear of mess and the world's opinion. Audience interaction. Do you think Marcus's challenge was necessary for Alex to make his definitive choice? Comment your opinion. If Alex's defense of his family moved you, hit like and subscribe for the end of this touching story. 8. The genuine commitment and the reclaimed legacy. The incident with Marcus marked a decisive turning point, not for the drama, but for the clarity it brought. Not just for Charlie, but for Alex himself. From that day on, the respectful space between them shrunk to a minimum, replaced by the comfort and warmth of a unit. Alex handled the Gulf Investments deal from the small town, working from the hotel and conducting video calls with the board. His message was clear. The company would be restructured to be more efficient, less dependent on his constant physical presence. He gave them results, but he refused to give them his time. The day after the cafe altercation, Alex arrived with his jacket at Charlie's house, but this time, he carried a small rectangular package under his arm. "This is unacceptable," he said, still smiling, his gaze resting on a drawing from one of the triplets stuck to the fridge. Mr. Hayes cannot live with an inflatable mattress in the hotel any longer. He opened the package. It was a solid wood step stool with 3 small steps. It's for the girls to reach the sink and brush their teeth without falling. And it's for me to rest my feet while they tell me about their dreams. Charlie looked at him, feeling a lump in her throat. He didn't bring flowers or jewelry. He brought utility, stability, and presence. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't have to thank me," he replied, kissing her forehead. "It's what daddies do." The next step was the final confrontation Charlie knew had to take place. One evening, after the girls were asleep, sitting on the small porch, Charlie mustered her courage. "There's something we have to burn," she said. Alex looked at her, confused. "The message," Charlie explained. "I wanted a woman, not a mother. I've kept it in my heart for 4 years, not as a grudge, but as a reminder. Today, I want to burn it." Alex paled, the only time the old pain returned to his face. "Charlie, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," she insisted. "Not to punish you, to free myself." She went into the house and returned with a small, crumpled piece of paper. They placed it in a ceramic bowl, and Alex, with a trembling lighter, set it on fire. They watched the words turn into ash, the thin smoke rising into the star-filled night. "That man is gone," Alex whispered, his voice choked. "He will never return. I promise you that the person standing before you cannot imagine a life without the chaos, the tenderness, and the beauty you have given me. I want all 4 of you. Charlie didn't ask if that meant, "I love you." She felt it in the way he held her hand, in the way he looked at his daughters. It was a love hard-won, stronger than the one they had once shared. The gesture from Alex that sealed their future wasn't the swing set or the stool. A month later, Alex surprised Charlie with a legal document. It wasn't a prenup or a declaration of assets. It was an official adoption request for the triplets, with her full consent as mother. "I may not be their biological father," Alex said, looking at her with sincerity, "but I am the only father they know, and I want them to have my name because it's the one they deserve. I want them to have no doubt in the world about their belonging." Charlie couldn't hold back the tears. This was deeper than money or a promise. It was the total acceptance of his responsibility, of his unconditional love for the girls. "And me?" she asked, smiling through her tears. "What about me?" Alex knelt, not to ask for forgiveness, but to ask a different question. He pulled out a small, dark wooden box. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, yet utterly substantial. "Charlotte Vance," he said, his eyes filled with quiet earnestness. "You asked me to show up every day. I promise I will. I promise I will build our home with you. Will you grant me the honor of being my wife and the partner of my life?" Charlie reached for him, hugged him tight, and whispered the only yes that had ever mattered. The epilogue of their story was written over the course of the following years. Alex formally resigned as CEO of his global corporation, installing a trusted successor on the board to restructure the company, dedicating his vast expertise only to consulting projects from Seabrook Cove. He and Charlie were married in a simple beach ceremony, with their 3 little girls, Eleanor, Sophia, and Claire, scattering rose petals and making a delightful amount of noise. The man who once believed life was built on business logic learned that the only legacy that mattered was constant tenderness, the chaos of family, and the courage to be present. Charlie, the woman who was once abandoned for being a mother, became the strength and the anchor of his new, true life. Final thought. Their story became a profound reminder that regret is not enough. It is only the beginning. True redemption and genuine love are earned by showing up not just once, but every single day, without fail. Thank you for reading this story. If this reminded you that consistency is the truest form of love, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and tell us in the comments what being present means to you. End of story.